They say the person who smiles with you the longest is often the one sharpening the knife behind your back. This is not a story about enemies. This is a story about a best friend. Her name was Daisy. But everyone at the office called her Ada. And when they said her name, they said it with respect. The kind of respect you earn, not the kind you demand. Ada was 34 years old, a branch manager at Meridian Solutions, a mid-sized logistics company in the city. She had worked her way up from a junior filing clerk at 22, 12 years of arriving early, staying late, solving problems that weren't hers to solve, and never, not once, letting personal trouble show on her face. She drove a modest car. She lived in a modest flat, but she carried herself like a woman who understood something most people didn't, that dignity is not a gift. It is a discipline. And then there was Ngozi. Ngozi had been Ada's best friend since secondary school. They had shared everything: school uniforms, exam notes, broken hearts, and a dream of one day becoming something in this city that chewed people up and spat them out. But life, as it often does, moved differently for each of them. Ada climbed. Ngozi stumbled. By 34, Ngozi had been unemployed for 3 years. A failed business, a relationship that collapsed and took her savings with it, and a confidence that had been slowly eaten away by rejection letters and borrowed time. Ada never judged her, not once. Every Friday, without fail, Ada would transfer money into Ngozi's account. Sometimes 15,000 naira, sometimes 20. Not as a loan, never as a loan. As love, as friendship, as the silent promise two little girls had made to each other decades ago. I will not leave you behind. And so this went on, month after month, for 2 years. The people at Ada's office didn't know. Her family didn't know. Only Ngozi knew. And Ngozi, at first, was grateful. But here's something they don't tell you about receiving for too long from one person. It begins to feel like debt. And debt, unacknowledged, cuddles into its sentiment. Ngozi started to change. Slowly, the way rot spreads in a wall before the wall falls. She began to feel less like a friend being helped and more like a charity case being managed. She started comparing herself to Ada, not out loud, not in any way Ada could see, but in the quiet, ugly hours of the night. Ngozi would lie in her bed and ask, why her? Why not me? She began to notice things she hadn't noticed before. The way Ada spoke with certainty. The way her phone was always ringing with people who needed her. The way she walked into a room and the room adjusted itself. We grew up the same, Ngozi would think. We sat in the same classroom. We ate from the same plate. So why is she the one with the title and the car and the respect while I am waiting on her weekly mercy? The gratitude was still there, but now it was living beside something darker. Then came the month Ada's own world began to crack. Her company announced a restructuring. Budgets were being cut. Ada had to take a pay reduction. There were whispers of layoffs. Her own savings, stretched thin by years of quietly supporting Ngozi alongside her own life, began to feel fragile. For the first time, Ada called Ngozi with hesitation in her voice. Sister, she said, I love you. You know I love you, but things are tight for me right now. I may not be able to send the money this month or next month. I am trying, but I just wanted you to know. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Ngozi said, okay, just that. Okay. But it was the kind of okay that means the opposite of what it says. Humiliation is a terrible teacher. It teaches all the wrong lessons. Ngozi did not hear, my friend is struggling and being honest with me. What she heard was, you are no longer worth helping. You are never worth it. She is tired of you. She did not speak to Ada for 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, something shifted inside her. A tectonic movement so subtle that Ngozi herself didn't notice it happening until she was already in a different place entirely. A woman in her neighborhood, Mama Chisom they called her, was known for certain things. Things people spoke about in lowered voices and sidelong glances. She was not a pastor. She was not a prophet. She was something older than both. Something rooted in an understanding of human hunger that no church or institution had managed to capture. Ngozi went to her on a Tuesday evening, wearing sunglasses so her neighbors wouldn't recognize her. Mama Chisom listened to everything. The unemployment, the humiliation, the envy, the friendship that felt like a mirror showing Ngozi everything she was not. She listened with the patience of someone who had heard every version of this story 1,000 times. Then she reached beneath a table draped in red cloth and produced a small dark bottle. The oil inside it was thick and faintly golden. Use this, Mama Chisom said. Every morning before you leave the house, rub it on your palms and your forehead. Speak what you want, and what you want will come. She named her price. Ngozi paid without flinching, which for a woman who had been borrowing for 2 years said everything about the depth of her desperation. That night, Ngozi sat alone in her flat, holding the bottle up to the light from a naked bulb. Inside, the oil shifted like something alive. She told herself it was just psychology, a ritual for confidence, nothing more. But she used it every morning without fail. Within 3 weeks, something changed. Ngozi got a phone call. Meridian Solutions, the very same company where Ada worked, was hiring. The woman who called said Ngozi's CV had been referred by someone in HR who had worked with her years ago during her last employment. She attended the interview. She sat in that chair and spoke with a certainty she had not felt in years. Her hands were steady. Her voice was clear. She said things she did not plan to say, and every word landed exactly right. She got the job. Ada was the first person she called, and Ada, beautiful, generous, unsuspecting Ada, screamed with joy so loudly that her neighbor knocked on the wall. God is faithful, Ada kept saying. I knew it. I always knew your time was coming. She did not know that her best friend would be walking 2 floors below her. She did not know what was already in motion. Ngozi arrived at Meridian Solutions on a Monday morning, dressed sharply, smelling faintly of that golden oil. And from the moment she walked in, people noticed her. Not because she was loud, not because she was aggressive. There was something about her presence, a kind of gravity, magnetic and quiet, that made people turn their heads and then find reasons to keep looking. Within the first week, the department head called her unusually sharp. Within the first month, she had reorganized a fining system that had frustrated the team for 2 years. Within 6 weeks, she had been mentioned in a memo that went to the company director. His name was Mr. Emmanuel Okoye, a man in his 50s who had built Meridian Solutions from a small freight agency into a regional name. He was sharp, but he had a weakness. He surrounded himself with people who made him feel admired. And Ngozi, guided by whatever that oil was doing to her mind and mouth and manner, knew instinctively how to make a man like Mr. Okoye feel seen. She complimented his decisions without flattering him. She questioned his ideas in ways that made him feel challenged rather than criticized. She spoke in his language. Within 2 months, she was appointed assistant manager, a title that required sign-off from Ada, her own best friend, who processed the paperwork with a smile and sent Ngozi a congratulations voice note that lasted 4 minutes. Ngozi listened to it once, then she deleted it. Power, they say, does not change a person. It only reveals what was always there. What was always there in Ngozi had been buried under years of gratitude and shame and smiling through meals she did not eat because she was saving money. Now it surfaced, hot and ancient and hungry. She began to change at work. Small things at first. A dismissive word to a junior staff member, a cold correction delivered in front of others when a private one would have done. A habit of making people feel small in front of Mr. Okoye so that she, by contrast, seemed tall. The office, which had been a decent place under Ada's leadership, began to feel like weather before a storm. People started to choose their words carefully. Laughter became rarer. The tea breaks that used to be loud and easy grew quiet. Some of the staff went to Ada privately. "Ma," one young woman said, twisting her fingers, "something is happening with the new assistant manager. She is changing the office." Ada listened. She smiled carefully and said she would look into it. But Ada made one mistake. She pulled Ngozi aside and spoke to her honestly, the way only a true friend would. "Ngozi, I'm hearing things. I'm not saying they are all true, but I need you to be careful. This is your opportunity. Don't let it become something else." Ngozi smiled at her, warmly, gratefully, like she always used to. "Thank you, sister," she said. "You are always looking out for me." That same evening, Ngozi went to Mr. Okoye's office. She did not shout. She did not accuse. She simply planted a seed the way a skilled person plants seeds, with the appearance of watering something else. "Sir," she said, "I want to say something and I hope you won't take it the wrong way. I've noticed some decisions coming from the manager's level that are inconsistent. I'm not accusing anyone, but I care about this company and I think you should know that morale is not where it should be, and I believe it's connected to management style." Mr. Okoye leaned back in his chair. "Go on," he said.
It happened on a Thursday. Ada arrived at work to find her keycard wasn't working on the manager's floor. She assumed it was an IT error. She went to reception, smiling, making a small joke about technology. The receptionist couldn't look her in the eye. The HR officer came down personally. He asked her to come with him. In a room with no windows and 2 chairs, Ada was told that her role had been restructured. Her manager-level position was being dissolved. She was being reassigned to facilities management, a department that handled building maintenance, cleaning rosters, and supply orders. Restructured, Ada repeated. The word sat in her mouth like something that did not belong there. She did not cry in that room. She would not give the room that. But she asked one question. Who recommended this? The HR officer looked at a spot on the wall above her head and said nothing. Ada walked out of that meeting and stood in the corridor, her hands very still at her sides. Down the hall, she could see the glass partition of the office she had just been removed from. Through the glass, she could see Ngozi, her sister since secondary school, sitting at the desk that had been Ada's desk, reading something on the computer screen with the settled posture of someone who had always belonged there. As if she felt Ada's eyes, Ngozi looked up. For a moment, one terrible, honest moment, they simply looked at each other. Then Ngozi looked back at her screen. Ada lasted 4 days in the new role. On the 5th day, she submitted her resignation. She placed it on the desk herself because she believed in doing things completely. One by one, over the following 2 weeks, 7 other staff members also resigned. People who had stayed because of Ada's leadership, who had put up with the increasing dysfunction because they trusted her steadiness, now left. The office hollowed out. Mr. Okoye began to feel it. The silences, the errors that were now nobody's fault because nobody experienced enough was left to catch them. The clients who called with complaints that had no one competent to receive them. He noticed something else too. Ngozi seemed less sharp in meetings, uncertain. She second-guessed herself in ways she hadn't before. He started to trace decisions backwards and find fingerprints on things he had not paid attention to. It was a small thing. On a Wednesday morning, Ngozi overslept. She woke up 15 minutes before she needed to leave for work, rushed through the flat, grabbing her bag, her keys, her phone, and walked out the door without applying the oil. She did not realize until she was sitting in traffic halfway to the office. She reached into her bag by instinct and her hand found nothing. She told herself it didn't matter, that it had never mattered, that it was just a superstition she had humored. But something was different that day. In the morning meeting, she fumbled a presentation she had given twice before. She misread a column of figures and Mr. Okoye corrected her in front of everyone, calmly, not unkindly, but publicly. She felt herself flush in a way she hadn't in months. The old Ngozi, the uncertain, fumbling, rejected one, surfaced like a drowned thing coming up for air. Mr. Okoye watched her through the meeting with the quiet attention of a man recalibrating something. After the meeting, he made a phone call, then 2 more. He called the HR officer into his office and asked him to walk him through, step by step, every decision made in the last 3 months regarding staffing and management. He asked specifically about Ada. He listened for a long time. Then he sat very still, in the way that men sit when they have understood something they wish they had understood sooner. Ada was home on a Friday afternoon, preparing for a job interview she had on Monday when her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Miss Adeze? The voice was formal. This is Mr. Emmanuel Okoye. I believe we have some things to discuss. What followed was a 2-hour conversation that began as a professional inquiry and ended as a confession from a man who had been expertly manipulated and was only now holding the full picture in his hands. He told her everything. She listened. When he finished, she was quiet for a long time. What do you want from me, sir? She finally asked. I want to offer you your position back, he said, with a formal apology, in writing. And I want to fix what was broken. Ada looked out her window at the street below. Children playing, a woman selling tomatoes from a wheelbarrow. Ordinary life, continuing indifferently. Give me a few days, she said. She called Ngozi that same evening, not to accuse, not to rage. She called the way she had always called her, steadily, with love, because that is who Ada was, and no amount of betrayal was going to take that from her. Ngozi answered after the 6th ring. I know you know, Ngozi said, before Ada could speak. Her voice was strange, stripped of the armor of the last few months. I know why you are calling. Then I don't need to explain anything, Ada said. I just want to know one thing. Was it ever real? Were we ever real? The silence on the other end lasted so long that Ada thought the call had dropped. Then she had it. The sound of someone trying not to cry and failing entirely. A ragged, broken sound. Not the tears of someone who was performing grief, but of someone who had just touched the full weight of what they had done. Yes, Ngozi finally said. It was always real. I got lost in myself. I got so lost. This is the part of the story that does not have an easy ending. Ada did not go back to Meridian Solutions. She thought about it. She prayed about it. She wrote a long letter to Mr. Okoye, thanking him for his honesty and declining the offer. Some doors, once you have walked through them for the last time, should remain closed, not out of bitterness, but out of self-knowledge. She found another position 3 months later. A better title, a better salary, a team that would come to love her the way teams always loved Ada. Not because she demanded it, but because she earned it every day. Ngozi was asked to leave Meridian Solutions. Not dramatically, just a quiet conversation with HR, a letter, and the careful, painful process of returning a borrowed identity. She went back to looking. Rejection letters, silences, the slow rebuild. But this time, something was different. She called Ada on a Sunday, not to ask for anything, just to talk. And Ada answered. They didn't pretend nothing had happened. They didn't paper over the wound with cheerfulness. They sat on the phone in the discomfort of what was real, and they talked slowly, honestly, about who they had been to each other and what had gone wrong and whether anything was left. What was left was not the same friendship they had before. How could it be? You cannot put back exactly what was broken. The shape changes, the weight changes. But something was there. Something quieter and more honest than the original. Two women who had seen each other at their worst, one in her generosity and one in her ruin, and had decided, without pretending it was easy, that the story wasn't finished. They found the small bottle of oil later. Ngozi did, at the back of her wardrobe when she was packing to move to a smaller flat. She held it for a long time. She went to pour it down the sink, but halfway there, she stopped. She thought about what she had wanted when she bought it. Not power, really, not even success. Underneath all of it, what she had wanted was simple. To feel like she was enough. To feel like she deserved to exist in the same world as the people she admired. The oil hadn't given her that. It had given her the appearance of it, and there is a difference between the appearance of enough and the feeling of it that can never be closed by anything outside yourself. She poured it down the drain. Then she sat at her kitchen table, opened her laptop and started updating her CV. Not out of confidence, not out of certainty, out of something more durable than either. The simple decision to keep going. They say jealousy is just love with nowhere to go. Maybe. But this story says something else. It says that when we cannot bear to watch someone we love succeed, the problem is never really with them. It is with the story we are telling ourselves about who we are and whether we deserve the life we want. The oil was never magic. The oil was just a lie she was willing to believe because the truth was too heavy to carry alone. Don't let anyone carry your truth for you. Not a bottle, not a healer, not someone else's success. Carry it yourself. Slowly, honestly, one day at a time. If this story reached you today, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Like, comment, subscribe. We tell the stories that don't get told.